Well, a very good morning to you. It's bright and early. I hope you had a fantastic rest as you're ready to kickstart your day in style. Thank you for choosing KTN News to inform you on this 12th day of May 2023. As we usually do it right here, we'll definitely keep you updated on what you need to know about the latest news making headlines, what exactly is fresh off the press. And it being a Friday, of course, we will definitely take a look at Uongozi today, just evaluating the week's top political developments, matters to do with governance, even as we touch base with a couple of leaders who will be joining me as my panelists today. My name is Jesse Rogers. Do join us till the tail end of the broadcast. As usual, we definitely start with just highlighting what you can expect on today's edition of the local dailies. We'll evaluate the top stories on Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, The Daily Nation, People's Daily, The Business Daily, Taifa Leo as well for the Swahili enthusiasts. So we definitely have you covered in terms of what you need to know about the news making headlines. Before I get to interact with my panelists as they enjoy a cup of tea, allow me to just take you through what is making the headlines today, what you can expect on the copies of the local dailies. And I'll first start with Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, just highlighting some of the stories making the front page. And there you go, the top story of the day: blackmail that saved Ruto from the ICC jaws. The blackmail that saved Ruto from ICC jaws. And for the last couple of days, The Standard has gone big with some of the interesting angles in Aden Duale's book. The Cabinet Secretary for Defense has penned a book, For the Record, with key insights around the political class for the past 10 to 15 years, of which he was in active politics. And my, oh my, from Tuesday till today, we've definitely highlighted this major insights. Today, pages 2, 3, 4, and 5, take a look at the ICC game. Not just that, equally, how MPs arm-twisted Uhuru to run for president in spite of the Mudavadi Pact. If you can well recall, Musalia Mudavadi was supposed to be the presidential candidate supported by William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013. There was talk of that, and he argued that they turned around last minute, perhaps showing the currency of politics is deceit in one way or the other. So interesting insights in case you have an interest in the political and governance landscape of the country. Make sure you interrogate some of the stories that have been covered from page 2 to page 5, all to do with the CS for Defense Aden Duale's book. Apart from that, on the national pages 14, reprieve for Joho in warehouse fight with Kenya Ports Authority. Find out more about what's happening in the corridors of justice. Business page 26, Safaricom profits drop by 22%. All to do with the year they've had. Even though they've posted profits, they seem to have dwindled in one way or the other. Sports page 43, Stars warm up ahead of Kano Athletics meet. Of course, just this weekend, we'll definitely see the track events, and international competitors have actually jetted in the country ahead of the Kano Athletics meet that is set to happen right here in Nairobi. More details on page 43. Find out who has flown in the country and whether the local sensation Ferdinand Omanyala will be gracing that particular event. The sports page 43 has you covered on that particular note. On the corridors of justice, page 8, all to do with the Monica Kimani murder case that is currently ongoing, where the accused, Maribe and Joey, have actually taken up the defense. Find out what exactly was said as they pleaded their case in front of the magistrate. More details on page 8. But those are some of the stories you can expect on today's edition of The Standard. Just to take you through what you can expect on the Daily Nation. And we'll get to interrogate this particular story with my panelist, Ruto's dream team in Rich State Farms. where on the last couple of months, we've definitely seen changes instigated by President William Ruto in various state agencies and parastatals, where the government is already planning privatization of at least 10 state companies this year. And the president is quoted right there saying, "Our focus is not on the sale, but their remodeling to make them perform better. We want these corporations to make money." And there we have some of the changes that have been made so far. The new men in charge of the parastatals, pictorials right there of the new office holders. More details, of course, have been covered on the subsequent pages. But on other stories, page 7, all to do with Safaricom's earnings, where Safaricom is mulling high-value loans in more bank deals. Find out how the telco giant has been faring on in the financial year. But away from that, over to education, the back page has you covered on the Daily Nation. Now, unions demand pay for junior high teachers, where junior secondary school teachers recruited by the Teacher Service Commission in January have not been paid for the past 4 months. The Kenya National Union of Teachers and the Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, have now called on the TSC to release the salaries to enable the affected 35,000 teachers to meet their financial needs. Unfortunate news right there for the JSS teachers. It's a game of wait and see, but the unions have come and highlighted their plight to the TSC. More details on the back page of the Daily Nation. Make sure you grab yourself a copy. But interestingly, President William Ruto jetted back to the country from Israel. And right after, he mentioned that all workers must pay housing fund. All to do with some of the proposals around the Finance Bill 2023. We'll definitely get to discuss them with my panelists. But touching on the housing fund, that 3% contribution by employees and employers, the president has insisted that every worker must contribute, dismissing concerns raised by critics of the program and pointing out that even workers who own houses or service mortgages must contribute to help low-income earners own homes. He equally took a swipe at unions, accusing them of siding with employers. More details on the current discourse, even as many are adding their voice to the finance bill proposals. Remember, public participation is of key importance, but at the end of the day, the members of parliament will have their way, at least the majority, as the minority have their say on this particular bill. Only time will tell to see how they will vote, whether they will make amendments to the Finance Bill 2023 or it will be passed as is. So we'll get to interrogate some of those stories, but that's what you can expect on today's edition of the Daily Nation. Over to the Business Daily. Rich Kenyans get helicopter tax cuts in Ruto's budget plan. Rich Kenyans get helicopter tax cuts in Ruto's budget plan, where the bill scraps import declaration fee, VAT, and railway levy. Kenyans bought 726 aircrafts last year, a marginal dip. Interesting times. Find out more on how much it might cost wealthy Kenyans or politicians to import helicopters and planes. If this goes through, it will be cheaper, as the Ruto administration has proposed to scrap 3 taxes on aircraft and parts at a time the Treasury plans to hit the middle class with higher fuel and salary taxes. All to do with funding that is in the 3.59 trillion shilling budget. More details right there on the state of the economy, including Kenya shoots itself in the foot in war on plastic pollution. The economic pages 4 has more details on that. Fuliza revenue falls to 5.4 billion shillings after reduction of fee. Just yesterday, we saw Safaricom announced their revenues, and that popular overdraft facility known as Fuliza seems to have dipped by, is it 8.3% to 5.4 billion shillings in the year to March, following slashing of the fees on the platform. So that's the latest touching on the economy. Make sure you grab yourself a copy of the Business Daily so you can adequately be informed about what's making headlines, economically speaking. Okay, over to the Swahili enthusiast. Taifa Leo has you covered. And this is what you can expect on the front page. Ugali kuzidi kuwa ghali. Wasagaji nafaka wasema magala ya mahindi hayana chakula hicho kwa sasa. Matumaini ya Wakenya kununua unga wa bei nafuu yanaendelea kufifia baada ya wasagaji unga kusema hawana mahindi ya kutosha. Chama cha wasagaji nafaka chasema wakulima wadogo wanaidai serikali takriban milioni 500 na hawana pesa ya kuagiza nafaka kutoka nje. Well, habari hiyo imeelezewa zaidi katika ukurasa wa pili. Pia dhambi za Yesu wa Tongaren kulingana na maafisa wa polisi, where recently the state definitely cracking down on what many refer to as cultic movements in the country. Yesu wa Tongaren is in the dock. Of course, we saw him questioned by police officers. And right now, it's a game of wait and see to see whether he will be charged or what exactly he will be charged with. But more details. And of course, just coming in the backdrop of the state forming that commission of inquiry to look into the Shaka Hola incident, but equally looking into whether the state will regulate churches or should the churches regulate themselves. That's equally the conversation that's currently going on as we speak in the country. Aliyeibia polisi simu kituoni kuhukumiwa. Ukurasa wa 3 na maelezeo zaidi. Maandalizi ya mazishi ya shujaa ya shika kasi, all to do with the late Mukami Kimathi, who passed on recently. And of course, the burial preparations are ongoing. We heard from the Deputy President that it will be a state funeral, definitely showing the importance we held the Mau Mau fighters. Mazungumzo ya Kenya Kwanza, Azimio sasa yaanza. Ukurasa wa pili una maelezeo zaidi ambavyo jinsi wabunge waliafikiana kuhusu masuala kadha baada ya vuta ni kuvute. So it's all to do with the talks before the talks. Interesting times, even as they seem to chart the way forward, progress, if you can call it that way, because they highlighted the key issues they'll be mulling over, set the timeline of 60 days, even as they said that the most urgent issues will be discussed within 30 days. So interesting developments right there on the political scene, all to do with the bipartisan talks. For the sports enthusiasts, Inter Milan pazuri kufuzu finali ya UEFA. For the Champions League watchers, all you need to know on page 20 of Taifa Leo. Let's cross over to the Star real quick and fast. This is what they're covering on the front page. There you go. Major split in Ruto-Raila talks agenda. The focus on the bipartisan talks, the contentious issues that the president's team wants demonstrations regulated, and Bomas chaos revisited. Equally, Azimio la Umoja Coalition Party outlined the issues they want addressed during the bipartisan talks. Only time will tell to see whether they will be canvassed in their entirety. A photo up right there of Sauti Sol equally making the front page of the Star, where the boy band group is preparing for a big night with Boys to Men. For those who like oldies, I'm pretty sure you will reminisce the good old days when you listened to Boys to Men. Find out where they'll be performing. More details on The Star. Why Uhuru's fate as Jubilee boss now lies with registrar, all to do with the Jubilee party wrangles. Page 7 has more details. Page 9, Joey says he accidentally shot himself over a text message, all to do with the Monica Kimani murder trial that is currently in the corridors of justice. More details on page 9. Still on the corridors of justice, the embattled preacher Mackenzie, who says now that police want him to starve to death, all to do with preaching water and drinking wine. Page 2 has more details on that particular note for you, even as investigations into that unfortunate massacre continue at Shakahola. The autopsy process and the unearthing of the bodies is definitely ongoing. So more details on The Star. The People Daily going big with this headline: intrigues in Kibaki succession. Where they followed the book. For the record, Aden Duale, the Defense Cabinet Secretary, just launched it yesterday, I think. And he's highlighted as the race for State House 2013 gathered pace, Uhuru announced he would sacrifice his ambition to back Mudavadi. But his and Ruto's allies worked behind the scenes to scuttle the deal. The new book by Defense CS Aden Duale says. Page 4 and page 23 of the People's Daily definitely highlights what you need to know about the push and pull around the 2013 State House race. Azimio cracks whip against rebel legislators, where they focused on the Senate, and the minority leader, Ledama Olekina, told the Speaker of that the opposition, has kicked out 5 Jubilee and 1 ODM legislator from Senate committees because of their close ties with the Ruto administration, as Jubilee splinter group allied to Kanini Kega protests against the ouster. Find out all to do with party politics and the infightings within Azimio, even as they try sort out their house. Which senators are facing the axe? Tom Ojienda of Kisumu right there, Fatuma Dulo, James Lomenen, Abdul Haji, Joseph Kamau, and Margaret Kamau. 5 legislators allied to Jubilee and 1 allied to ODM. So that's what you can expect on today's edition of the local dailies. Some of the big stories that we'll definitely get to cover with my panelists. So even as you head out to start your day, make sure you grab yourself a copy so you're adequately informed about what exactly is making headlines today. On that particular note, allow me to introduce my panelists right now so we can get into the thick of it, as they say. First of all, I'm joined by Kasim Tandaza, who's the Matuga Member of Parliament. It's a pleasure to have you with us. I hope you had a fantastic week.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Okay.
I've been well.
Yeah.
And with all the happenings and the budget cycle, it's bound to be another busy week.
Yeah, and we're about to talk about that. I understand you guys are on recess, but I'm sure it's a working recess. How's the working recess so far?
No, for sure. You see, what most Kenyans don't know is that actually the bulk of the parliamentarian work is done through committees. Mm-hmm. And even when we are not on recess, committees keep they're the ones who keep parliament running. And for this particular case, we are basically talking about the budget.
Yeah.
This is particularly a recess meant for committees to work on the budget cycle, for sure. So every member of parliament now is busy in one or another in the different committees working on the budget. And until, people just sit bang read on the floor of the House, not actually appreciating the work that has been done. And this also puts the question on the general public who say, wabunge wanalipwa tu na hakuna kazi wanafanya. It's so annoying. Okay, I would put it correct. It's so annoying for me when someone says, and even the media people will also hype that one, that there is nothing wabunges wanafanya. Wanalipwa mishahara mikubwa, and they do nothing.
Okay.
The kind of work that we do sometimes up to midnight, And you know, we don't have any extraneous allowance. We don't have overtime. That goes unseen. But thank God we are doing it for the Kenyan people, for ourselves as Kenyans. And we do good ultimately for God also to realize that we are here to do good.
I mean, you've equally availed yourself here for the Kenyan people.
Exactly.
So we appreciate Asante Sana Kasim for your time. Martin Zawino, the Member of Parliament of the Liwa constituency, equally joining us. Ward Baba, how are you doing?
I'm okay.
It's been a while. I hope you're well. Had a fantastic week.
Yes, it is. But as Tandaza said, it's just a change of responsibility, running to the constituency and also doing this budget stuff. And for us, we have been dealing with what did they do with the last money we gave them before they can now present. So we have been doing that. And it's not easy. To me, I say it's a call.
Yeah.
It's a call because it's 24/7. And even if you explain to the people, they will not get it. You know, there's that kind of a mindset which people have. But we thank them for the opportunity to serve them. And we can pledge to them that we are on it. We are recessing, yes, but it's just a change of responsibility.
How's the reception back at home around the finance bill? Just generally, what are people saying in Liwa?
People are depressed. Because you see, when you do financial budget, there's always that hope, that expectation that this time it will be much better. But now, again, it is clouded with the taxation, so they don't get what government means by a budget. Because the budget should be a roadmap to make me better in the future with my children, education and food on the table and all that. But that is now missing. So it's a mixed reaction. And I know where they are coming from. If people are talking big money and you don't have anything on the table, you are confused.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and it is true.
Okay, we'll definitely get to talk about that because, I mean, the question is, are we talking about the increment in taxes, or should we question the service delivery that should come with payment of taxes? You know, healthcare, education, whatnot. But we'll get to discuss that. William Kisang equally joining us today. He's the Elgeyo Marakwet Senator. It's a pleasure to see you after a while. Asante sana for your time. Karibu.
Thank you very much. Yes.
You've had a fantastic week?
I had a fantastic week. This week we also on recess as senators.
Yeah.
We took 2 weeks recess. I think our colleagues in National Assembly have taken 1 month because of the budget. You know, they're the ones who go around the country doing public participation about the budget. You know, there is in the new constitution, there is they introduced basically that public participation is key, so that as they move across the constituencies, across the counties, they can pick at least 1 or 2 key projects. I remember that between 2013 and 2017, we did public participation, especially the budget committee, the same 2017, 2022, and I believe that's what they are doing now. And also, departmental committees are busy on the budget. For us senators, we are also very busy on committee work. You know, as Tandasa said, you know, people don't know, at the plenary, it's called talk show, but the real work happens at the committees. Okay. That is where the business of the houses are generated. So the week has been good. Of course, you know what's happening in the country. We have Shakahola, we have the finance bill, and I believe that's one of the reasons why we're here.
Exactly.
We are working
to
for
talk
the
about
people.
it.
We woke up at around 4:30 this morning to be here by 6.
Definitely, and we appreciate the early risers, even as we give value to our audience back at home. Since we have a senator here, let's find out what's happening in the Senate. I know you're not a member of the Azimio coalition, but they seem to be cracking their whip within the Senate, all to do with the party members who are allied or seem to be leaning towards the Kenya Kwanza side. And we've talked about committees. They're being de-whipped within the committees. What do you make of this?
I've seen, it's surprising, I've just seen in today's paper that the minority whip has written a letter to the Speaker of the Senate to de-whip, with a proposal to de-whip the 6 senators who are perceived to be leaning towards the Kenya Kwanza. Yeah. You know, these are very senior. You know, the Professor Ojenda is a senior counsel. Dulo is a third-term is senator. You know, she's a ranking member. Lomenen is a third-term also member. We were together from 2013 with my colleague here. Aji is his second term. The other Kamari is, I think, fourth term or so. So basically, from where I sit, as soon as you are elected or nominated as a member of Senate or as a member of National Assembly, basically you are serving Kenyans. You are serving Kenyans, and when business comes to the house, there are things that you need to articulate and support, maybe based on your party, and the others, you use your own conscience as a leader. So I believe what the minority whip has done is within his own right, but at the same time, these members also have a right. You are expected, you've just heard that as members of Senate, even members of National Assembly, the main business is in the committees, not in the plenary. So these members deserve to be in committees, and the Speaker will allocate these members committees, even if they are whipped. But it's not, I don't think it is right for the minority whip to whip them, because where will you, those particular positions, already in Senate, we are already in 3 committees. And in these 3 committees, if you remove the 6 members and you allocate those slots to other senators who are already in 3 committees, it means basically they are not going to produce. People will be appearing technically in a committee without giving quality time. So they deserve to be there. And they'll contribute. They're not contributing when in those committees to support a SMEO. They are supporting the agenda of the House. They are supporting agenda for Kenyans. The only issue is when it comes to voting in the House. And everybody, as a member of Senate, you have your own free will to vote the way, especially where people want you to vote. Those who elected you, yes.
Okay, but the question would be, Senator, you know, at the end of the day, the party will whip you to go a certain way, but then you've raised an important point about your conscience. What if your conscience is pointing towards the other side and your party is telling you this way?
That is why, even in this particular, the finance bill that is outside there, just the way the BBI was, there are things you can consult your voters. You know your voters are the supreme.
Yeah.
So you consult them. If they tell you to go this particular direction, that is the direction you can take. But the party is also here.
Okay.
So it is basically, you know, there are things, maybe the party can call you for a BG and say, this is the direction. If the party says, this is the particular direction that we need to take as a party, then basically the party supersedes your conscience, and you maybe you need to consult also your people.
Okay.
Yes, so that now you make a decision.
All right.
Yes.
Interesting. It's an intricate balance, it seems.
You know, it's not easy.
It's
because also your party is here.
Okay.
Your conscience is here, and your people are here.
Yes.
So you have 3 things to balance,
Yeah.
and now make an informed decision.
Okay.
Because I mean, when you are elected also as a leader, you are supposed to lead your people.
Okay.
And when you read in the leadership literature, a leader is supposed to take his people where they have not been there. That is why you're supposed to give direction. Otherwise, what was the use of electing you if you can't guide?
Okay, Martins, add your voice to this. You're the Azimio member right here. And I'm pretty sure you have a contrary opinion to what he's mentioned. That, you know, party sponsored you to parliament. At the end of the day, party allegiance should take foremost importance. So what say you?
You know, I was just watching Senator Kisang explaining and really struggling, you know, because he knows the truth. He mentioned some few words which is very interesting. These are senior people. They have rights.
But a lot of us, even
but
the 3 of us.
But also he said they were leaning towards Kenya Kwanza. But the truth is, all of us were sponsored by our parties. We signed party rules and governance rules. Even if you talk about these 6, Senator, who took their names to be considered in those committees? It was the whip. That means they were whipped in, and they can also be whipped out. And there's something which I want to say to this, and it is true. If you want to change your allegiance, it is required that you resign. You know, that is what is lacking in our politics. If we can get that, we will be a very good nation. That if your conscience does not allow you now to associate with the party which sponsored you, you can be man enough or woman enough and say, okay, you sponsored me, I was elected, but now going that direction, I don't feel I can go that direction. So I resign.
Has that ever happened?
I pray it can happen, but it happens also in other countries with mature politics. But if we can get that, that would solve many problems. But you cannot be in one party and supporting the ideology of another party. That is not acceptable. I hope people can gain their consciousness and say, no, let me be on my own, if it comes to that. So the whip is right. And these guys, we have seen how they pull this yoke on the other direction. So the whip is right. And I hope these guys will also man up and say, okay, I deserve this because I'm not thinking the way you are thinking. But they should not really cry for, because this is their own making, not the whip's making.
Interesting. And I think I recall ANC had instituted proceedings against a certain member. I think it's in the previous parliament. Yeah. How did that go? Because it's such a tedious task in case a member, and messy, yeah. In case a member goes contrary to the party stand, to the party, to what the party stands for. What say you about this whole process?
Thank you, Jesse. Let me just jog my memory a bit from what Mheshimiwa Bunge Wandiwa just said. It has happened in Kenya. It has not only happened outside in other countries. Some bit of history served me right, it happened early during independence with the late Jaramogi Oginga, and it also happened later on with Raila.
98.
You see, 98, I'm not sure of the dates, but it has happened in Kenya. So it's not that it has never happened. But for this particular matter, I think we also need to look at the law, because basically it's not in the Constitution, it is in the Political Parties Act and submit in the Election Act, which says, as they put it correctly, when you advocate the policies of another party. Now, going down to these 6, and I would want to be very clear from where I sit, have they been advocating policies of another party? They are in Jubilee. They have not said they are no longer Jubilee members, and the one member in ODM is still an ODM member. I remember as late as, was it 3 months ago, when Jalango was to be kicked out, he even went for an ODM meeting for him only to be locked out, showing that he's an ODM member. Now, when it comes to the issue of supporting the agenda of another party, are they supporting the agenda of UDA? Are they supporting the agenda of ANC? From where I see it and on record, no. They are only saying, if this bill is good for our people, then we support it. And you know, when you are making laws or we're debating something, it is for Kenyans. If I bring a bill in parliament, it's not a bill for Matuga people. It's not a bill for Kenya Kwanza. If it passes, it will apply equally to the whole nation. So I think this is where now people are getting it wrong. That when, assuming Mheshimiwa here comes with a bill which is good for this country, and I support it, will I be deemed to be supporting ODM because it came with an ODM member? No. But it is the reverse now, where people amplify it, that if you're in opposition and you support something on the floor which has been brought by the government, then you are deemed to have supported an idea of the other party. I think this is where we are getting wrong. It is not the case, and that's why we find it, even when now it comes to the due process. And you know, we start with IDR, the internal disciplinary mechanisms within the party, and then you go to the tribunal before you go to the courts, then that is where now it becomes very difficult. For our case, the last member of parliament was our Secretary General, NC. Of course, for him, he was outright. Yeah, you can see we used to come here and debate the way we used to talk about the party leader, talk about the party, and clearly show that, and goes on to the podium, he will play his clips here saying that I don't support this party, now I'm on this party, and has gone out to even vie on the party that he said he was supporting. Right. But you see now, the court processes sometimes have their own way of doing things, mostly corruption. Let me put it, we are not discussing corruption, I hope today here, but you know the courts, when it comes to, yeah, they do things which sometimes are just, even a common man will say, no, this could not have happened, but they do it. Otherwise, I think, as per our standing orders, every member of parliament must belong to a committee. This, I think, it's not, I think, that is as per our standing orders. So, even when they kick them out, they'll still belong to a committee. And the question is, when they go to discuss this budget, we don't discuss this budget in terms of you belong to which party. If an item is being zero rated, it will be zero rated and we'll say it's good for this country, like the issue, maybe we'll go into the detail about the nitty-gritties. When you say we're zero rating LPG, Nini, everybody will enjoy cheaper gas. Okay. When you are saying now we are going to escalate VAT on an item, then that will affect everybody. And I don't say any member of parliament simply supporting because it is the position of the party when he knows that it's going to hurt the whole nation, unless there are now countermeasures. Okay. So, to me, it is unfortunate that one thinks that by whipping them from a committee, they're actually punishing them. I don't think it works that way. And if they were to vote against something, they will still do it even. In fact, now you are giving them a reason to vote against you, maybe out of anger, instead of just reasoning, you know.
What is interesting in politics, we don't need barometer to measure the loyalty. The way you advocate, the way you behave, even the demeanor. So what the parties are doing, if we doubt, slight doubt, that you may not go on our side. I wish what he's saying is true, but it's not true in parliament. Even you know this is not right for my people, and it has been told you vote this way, that is the way to go. And that is what we are fighting, the sycophancy in parliament. That is what we are fighting for. But what he's saying, which is okay, the speaker can assign them, fine, but they are not from our party. And now, it is good that you know your enemy, rather than if somebody is hiding under the table and you think is going to. So we will work extra hard, knowing that they are not going to vote for this and that. But it is clear we cannot sponsor people and then leave them there if they are not towing the party line.
I wanted to say something about this particular, except the ODM member. You know, these are Jubilee senators, and we also have Jubilee members of National Assembly. And our law is very clear. You can have a pre-election coalition or agreements or post. What Jubilee basically have done, they have said, now that the ASME did not form government, we are free to decide to do a post-election coalition agreement with Kenya Kwanza. And basically they are right. And this is, they have several members. I think there are 6 senators, National Assembly, they have 20-something.
Yeah.
So basically this is, this particular party, Jubilee, is a parliamentary party. They will be assigned committees. So basically they are moving, ASME minority whip is whipping them, but basically they'll be allocated even the same committees by the speaker. So this is not an issue. This is not a punishment.
All right.
You know, they believe that it is a punishment, but basically they deserve to be in committees, and they also have a political right to decide that now that our coalition did not form government and we want to serve our people better, when we're in government, we want to do a post-election coalition. And you've also seen, basically, the law is very clear. The former party leader was supposed to have also resigned by March this year, and that's, soon they are going to have a new party leadership in Jubilee, and they'll fully now come to Kenya Kwanza and work for the people well.
But I think that is the elephant in the room. You know, this issue of government in the new constitution is not being defined right. Because we in the legislation, we are an arm of a government. So there's the judiciary and the executive. So if a Senate amends the executive, that should not be a driving factors for parliamentarians. We should remain in our domain. We are also a government on our own. So that should not change the fact that if you didn't get the executive, now you resign. If we can get out of that, I think Kenya will be different, so that we can play our roles as elected leaders.
Interesting times we live in, gentlemen. Kassim, Mike, you want to add your voice before we shift focus?
You see, I'm sure Mheshimiwa here would have been very happy if they formed the government as a parliamentarian, not as part of the executive.
Yes.
But since
not over happy.
This is a case of wale wazee wanasema kama huifikii basi unasema ni mbovu ile haina maana. That is what is simply saying. But what I know going forward, and I think it started with the previous government, when even Raila himself abandoned the opposition and joined the government. You see. So here we have presidents from the patriarch himself, where he would want to join the government after losing an election. Not just in the previous election, I think this is the history of Raila, that whenever he loses, he tries to go into the government. This is on record. And I don't know why you are looking at me with a very bad eye, but you know that is the truth. Okay. So I think as he says that, he should know that it is Raila himself who's been leading by example, that when you lose, you join the government. It had happened, it has happened, it happened. And I think even now, there are some attempts for him again to move towards that direction. Sasa, baba akienda, mtoto unafanya nini? I think that is where the problem is. But I think going forward, I think we should be able now to streamline these things. I'm not saying I support that kind of behavior, but we are having a behavior which has been orchestrated by none other than Raila Amolo Odinga himself. And I think that's where the kids are having a problem.
That cannot go.
We're not here to malign characters, but...
No, it's not maligning.
Yes.
Is it not on record? Yeah, it's on record.
There could be good things Tandaza would have said about Baba.
No, Baba is a very good man.
That whenever he loses unfairly, he still embraces peace, so that people can.
Okay.
Yeah, people should select what is good for the country rather than what is.
It's called friendly fire.
Yes. Friendly fire.
No problems, no harm, no foul.
From a good angle.
Yeah, let's shift focus right now. The front page of the Daily Nation, and I'll just take you through it, because we might not have the physical copies right here. The big story of the day is all to do with the appointments that have been done by President William Ruto, turning around state corporations and agencies, where at least 11 of Kenya's richest state corporations have had a change of guard at the helm since President William Ruto came to power. And 8 of the 15 corporations and agencies have had both the board chairperson and managing director general changed in the last 8 months. And of course, we've heard from President William Ruto mentioning that this is an attempt to turn around the running of not only the poor performing state agencies, but also the government's cash cows, effectively extending tradition past governments have practiced. And we heard recently of the selling or the proposal to sell some of these corporations in order to, in one or the other, perhaps raise funds for infrastructure and other needs. And it's sort of, I don't know if you interrogated yesterday's Standard, it had a fact check on the appointments that have been made by the president so far, because the talk on social media is that, you know, these appointments are favoring one side of the region in one way or the other. But according to that fact check, 21% of the appointments, Kalenjin 21%, Kikuyu, I think the rest going down to 10% as they follow. So Looking at the appointment so far from where you sit, of course, as a president, you have to put people who believe in your dream and whatnot, but would you criticize the appointment so far made by President William Ruto, not just in the corporations, but equally as PSs, the CASs slots as well?
Good, thank you very much. From what you have given and what was there yesterday in the Standard,
Yeah.
from where I sit, I don't criticize. Okay. You know very well when you're looking for faults, you have an agenda to deliver to the people of Kenya. And you need to get people with the right qualifications, with the right skills, with the right experience to deliver for you. So that after 5 years, when you go back to the people, you say, this is what I promised, this is what I've done, and this is my percentage of achievement. So, and basically, the people who are going to help you to deliver to deliver the agenda that you told the people are the people who supported you.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So this is where you are going to pick, and you'll pick across. If you see even the recent appointments, basically, the percentages that you are giving, if you go back maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, even 20 years ago, generally they've been like that.
True, true.
There's no big change.
Yeah.
It's only that because we have just, there was a transition, this is a new government, so it is magnified to look like they are coming from one region, but basically this is the same all over the world. You saw the other day when Joe Biden was elected as the president of America. He changed. And he picked it. It's only that they don't have a tribe issue. Okay. As we are used to, we need to remove this thing called tribe. So that when Kisang is elected, is appointed as a CS or as a PS or a CS, we don't look at him as a Kalenjin, as a Kikuyu, or as a Luya, or as a Luo. We look at Kisang. Is he competent? Is he experienced? Does he have the skills? See what the president did the other day with the KDF. He picked the right person, and Okola was, did you expect him to be Okola? I don't know why we're not talking about that.
He was next in line.
No, it's not next in line. You would have, there are many generals.
Yes, yes.
There are even Badi, the former NMS, was next to the line. Yeah. So basically, let us not trivialize appointments. These are people who are qualified. I wish they would have said the president has appointed a Kikuyu and the Kikuyu is not qualified.
Okay.
Yes.
So we should base the arguments on meritocracy.
Oh yes,
Simple.
on merit.
And in terms of merit, the president has got it right from where you said.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. As we come from a break, gentlemen, I'll get your views, including that particular strategy to sell some of these parastatals through the listing at the Nairobi Securities Exchange and overhaul the poor performing ones through change in leadership and systems. Some of the top stories we're interrogating here. Good morning. You're watching Morning Prime. We'll be back in a few with my panelists as we continue taking a look at the day's top stories. Stay with us.